Okay, Michael, the recording has started, so take it away.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Good evening, depending on your time zone. Thank you for joining us for the OPS 12.3 new features presentation. My name is Michael Keel. I'm the product manager for OPS MVS here at CA. I'm in the room with pretty much all the development team for OPS. We're very excited to let you know what the new features are. The product should be being released as a full GA either today or tomorrow, depending on when our packaging gets done. We are completely done with development, so we are going to go through the new features here for you. Feel free to ask any questions. I think when there's a procedure for that with typing it in and we'll get the responses. Is that correct?
Yeah, so anyone who has a question, because not all of you are on the phone line, please use the Q&A box in the lower right of your WebEx screen. If you don't see that screen open right now, in the upper right corner of the WebEx window, you'll see a question mark icon. So just click on that, and the box will open. And we'll, I guess maybe it may make the most sense to answer the questions at the end.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, sir.
All right, thank you. Okay, so normal legal disclaimer here that we are showing you stuff from CA internal development. So,
hey, Michael. Hey, Michael. Sorry to interrupt you. Are you advancing the slide in the? Oh, you know what? I didn't make you the presenter. There we go.
Oh. All right.
There we go. Now we're good. Carry on.
All right. So you're seeing the agenda now?
We're good.
Okay. All right, so the agenda here is we'll have an introduction, give you a little information about the project and OPS in general. Then we'll go into the enhancements that we did on OPSLOG, SYSPLEX Variables, System State Manager, and then a couple of general enhancements, and then we will go through some additional education opportunities that you have around OPS. All right. So this is the product overview slide for OPS. It goes through the business problems where you're trying to prevent business downtime, scalability, staffing issues, low productivity on your mainframe, and how OPS will address those issues for you through its key capabilities of monitoring, improving availability, increased operational efficiency, System State Manager, multi-system communications, and then the personas that we are going after. So this is kind of our guiding principles on what we're doing with OPS and why we kind of do all the functionality that we do, is to address these kind of issues. All right, so this is our overview bullet slide for this release. And we're looking to provide an automation toolkit that enables customers to easily configure and maintain systems in a continuously evolving mainframe environment while allowing it to extend into distributed and mobile environments. So that was kind of what our focus was for this release. The easily configure piece was definitely a major guiding principle, and you will see that whenever we get into the SSM updates and what we did with that to get that it's simplified, easier to do. So the highlights of this release were a simplified System State Manager administration, being able to incorporate in the SSM GA code that we had into the base SSM, so it's a lot easier for you to move tasks within a SYSPLEX so that you can manage your environment a lot easier that way. We also had some enhancements to the OPSLOG, and we expanded our integration into ESP. And all this was basically just focused on making it easier for you to manage your system and being able to get people trained up to speed faster when they need to be, become more productive automation programmers, and allow you to kind of get them into solving your business problems a lot faster. Doesn't matter. Okay, so our primary use case for this release was around getting a System State Manager a lot easier to first install, then implement on your systems, and then manage once you have that done. So and a lot of that was along the lines of you've got retiring people coming in, you have people moving out of positions, moving into other positions, so that requires the knowledge for using OPS and a lot of other products on the mainframe kind of is going up and down within the groups. So being able to get up to speed faster was a big tenet on what we wanted to do, so that you weren't constantly training people and getting them up to speed before they were able to get work done. So going from years worth of training to months worth of training before they became functionally good for doing automation. So what we did was, for SSM, you would have to jump through basically 6 different screens and locations within OPS in order to define something in System State Manager. We took that all down to one screen. Everything that you need to know or define for a task can all be done on one screen now with this release. So it greatly simplifies what you need to do, and there's also a lot more information given on what all those fields are and what needs to be given in there. Okay, so now let's go into the actual enhancements that are available. The first one we have is an OPSLOG enhancement. So there's actually three separate changes we made here. What we did was we added additional display columns within the OPSLOG to give you more information about each particular message. So in the past, there was a ruleset.rulename variable that was available for you, and that was the last rule that fired off of that particular message. So if you had multiple rules being fired off, you would only know that last one. You wouldn't be able to tell what other ones were. The enhancement that we added was there's now a ruleset.rule1 through 5, so 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that gives you the 5 rules that have fired off of that message. It's the first 5. So if you've got 5 that have fired off, you can actually see which rules fired and in what order they fired in. So this can help you diagnose an issue or a problem with your automation code, or just be able to find out why something took an action off of a message. You can see that these particular rules fired off of it. There is still profiling available for this. However, it was moved down to the second panel within the profile screen. This was to free up some internal workings that we had in OPS, but you can still profile on it. If you put in a rule name, it will find it if it's in any of those columns. So even if it's rule 3 or 2, it doesn't matter. You don't have to specify that. You just tell it which one you want. Additionally, we also added in a column called OJobName. This was a variable that was available in AOF Rules for you. However, we never exposed it in the OPSLOG. What this is that's the original job name that issued out the message. There are times, based upon how the message is generated, that the job name variable will show up as console or something other than the actual job that fired it off. But the OJob name will always show the original job that fired it, even in those situations. So we exposed that for you, gave you that information so that you can use that for your research. And then the CART and the CART-X are for command tagging. This can come into place if you have particular variables set or parameters set in OPS that require the CART and CART-X to be filled out by the process that issued the command on the system. It's not always a requirement, but we didn't have it available for you, so you couldn't debug any problems if you did have that set. So now you can see that in the OPSLOG. And the next slide here, here's an example of what the rule name and rule sets look like. These rules you can see actually demonstrate that we had 5 different rules fire off on these test messages, just so we can show you what it was, and you can see they are in a different order sometimes, just to give you a flavoring of how that actually shows up in the OPSLOG and for you to be able to look at it. The one downside with this is it does take up a lot of real estate on the screen, but it's just the size of the messages. And then they are also, all these new columns are also available in the pop-up message that comes out in OPSLOG that shows you all the display columns. So that is available, and it comes out in the formatted text if you hit the little number count to tell you how many rules are fired off of it. The one thing is we have had questions about, well, what if you have more than 5? We're only saving those 5, so if you have 6 or 7, you're still only going to see the 5. There is a way, if you turn on rule trace, it will, in the OPSLOG, it will show you all the rules that fired, but that is something that you have to do proactively before the message comes out. You can't do that historically. It's basically a size limitation is what we came into. We had to pick a number, so we picked 5. Hopefully that will be adequate in most situations. All right, so those are our OPSLOG enhancements for this release. The next thing that we're going to go into is the SYSPLEX variable enhancements. So a couple releases ago, we put out SYSPLEX variables that allow you to share variables across any system within the SYSPLEX that required a common services component to be installed. So the enhancement that we have in this one is that we added the ability to have what we're calling SYSPLEX Variables Hardening. This is the equivalent of having a permanent global variable. So these are VSAM backed. They will survive an outage. Of course, in this case, the outage is a SYSPLEX outage. So if your entire SYSPLEX goes down and comes back up, ops will reload these back into the SYSPLEX variable pool, and you will be able to have access to them just like you did for the normal SYSPLEX variables that went away on a SYSPLEX outage. So this does require a VSAM file to be installed that goes across your entire SYSPLEX, and it uses just the one VSAM file to back it up and bring it forward for you. So as for that, we added in a new global variable high-level qualifier. The previous SYSPLEX variables were GLV, PL, X, T, and then 0 through 9 or A through Z. The permanent ones that will go into that VSAM file has the T replaced with a P. The one thing that we do caveat on here is because we have all these reads going across SYSPLEX going into this VSAM file, we do not recommend putting in hundreds of thousands of variables into here because it will cause some issues with your CPU usage, because it is going to do that read and write every time you do an update to one of these variables. So I would use these only in the case where they need to survive the SYSPLEX outage. If you don't normally have SYSPLEX outages, then the temporary ones will be just fine, and those just live in memory, and you're not going to have an issue. But if they need to survive that SYSPLEX outage, then do use the B ones. Okay. So that was the update for that. Now we get into, this is where we spent the majority of our time on this release. It was in the System State Manager enhancements. The team did a lot of work on this, created a whole new user interface for managing and maintaining ops resources. The main reason for this was because we wanted to make it easier for customers to both set up, install, and use System State Manager. There was no centralized location for work. In order to make an SSM setup, you had to update multiple tables, you had to update rules, you had to possibly update a recs. There was probably research in the OPSLOG that you needed to do to find the messages, and it was just very time-consuming and cumbersome, and you really had to be an expert in the product in order to do it and do it correctly. So we wanted to take that back a level and allow you to get people up to speed a lot faster on System State Manager, because this is really a base function of the product, and if you can get to speed faster on SSM, get your system managed, be able to IPO and manage resources, that frees up your automation staff to actually tackle major business problems, make sure that your business is running correctly instead of spending all your time making sure your CICS regions start. Yes, it's important, but it shouldn't be that difficult to do. we want you guys concentrating on the really hard problems, not defining a task to System State Manager. So we wanted to make it easier for you to do that. All right, so a couple of key enhancements that we have in this ISPF interface that we created here is there is now a staging table that this ISPF interface uses. So everything that you do in this ISPF interface will go into a staging table first. What that allows us to do is things like run a verification process on it before it goes into production. So we have a whole bunch of criteria. Is your IPL state set correctly? Do your prereqs exist? Do you have a start command? Do you have a stop command? Does the rule that's going to set the task up actually exist? And so we will go out and check those for you and verify that all that stuff exists, and that at least the base minimum amount of stuff that we can check is there before you load this into production. That gives you kind of a good feeling that you're not going to cause an issue whenever you pull this in. The other thing that the staging table allows you to do is it allows you to do all your changes in an offline copy of your SSM first, and then once you're ready to move it into production, or you've got change record approved, or you've got a certain change window, you can go into the ISPF panel, issue one command, and it will take all that work you did and load it into your production tables for you. So you no longer have to worry about editing those tables on the fly during a production change process. You can do all that offline and then load it in with a single command. All right. So copying existing resources, it's now just a single command. You put a C next to the resource that you want to copy. It will pop up a screen with a copy of it. If you go through, edit what you need to, save it, and that's it. It's a much simpler copy process than having to worry across multiple locations and everything. It will generate the rules for you. It will update all your tables and everything just with a single copy command. On top of that, everything you need to know about a resource is now on a single screen. You will be able to go into the screen and see the start commands, the stop commands, the prereqs, the rules that start and stop it, the various prereqs, and all the other functionality, whether it comes up or down with an IPL. All that is all on a single screen. It's easy to research now. If somebody asks you, hey, how do you start the CICS region? You can go in and look, and here it is all in one location. Makes it a lot easier. For editing purposes, we went through and we created two different processes. One was a detailed walkthrough, and one is calling it an advanced single screen. So if you are kind of new to the product or need additional guidance on how to go through, if you go through the detailed walkthrough, when you go to add a task, it's 4 screens, and it gives you a lot more help information on each of the tabs and on each of the different fields that you need to fill in to kind of walk you through on what actually needs filled in, what the information is we're looking for, what's valid, what's not. Whereas the single screen takes all those 4 screens, puts them all on one screen for you, and just displays it all. There is some help on there, but it's nowhere near as detailed as the 4 walkthroughs. And if you do select to go on that single screen, there are hot links listed on there that will jump you back to the detailed screen in case you actually need that help information. So there's kind of 2 different flavors on how you can walk through it, and you'll see some screenshots a little later on how that works. So we added in some point and shoot fields on here also. So for information that we were able to pull out for you, if you go on to the label line and hit enter on it, it'll pop up the selection screen for you. So this is really useful for what SSM table do you want to put it in. Say your installation uses 4 different SSM tables. If you click on the table name, it'll pop up and give you a list of all 4 table names that you have defined SSM. You can select it, and now that gets filled in for you. The same with group, which I'll get into later, is a new feature of this, and the type field. So all these things will allow you to pull in existing information so you don't have to bounce out of the screen and go find the information. It's all available for you. Okay, and the last kind of high-level thing that we added in here is we have a process currently in place called Snapshot, that if you've never built an SSM before, you can go through and use Snapshot, and it'll go out, discover all your resources on your system, and build your SSM tables for you. We've updated that whole process to now use these new policy tables that we built for the administration. So it's going to go through and build all these admin panels for you and give you all the information and highlight where you need to go and make some changes to get the system up and running yourself. So it really takes you from discovery the whole way into administration all in one step. It's going to go out and issue a whole bunch of commands, just like the older version. So it does take some time to get done, but it's going to build probably 80% of what you need from scratch, and then it's going to be the really your implementation specific stuff that you're going to have to go through and change. All right, so let's get some pictures here to show you what's going on. Okay, so one of the major things that we added into this is we're calling these policies or CA best practice. So what we have is you can go in, and as part of defining a task, you can select it and say, this is a CICS region. And we have, well, just for CA products, we have 113. We have well over 400 defined once you count in other vendor products that we're going to ship with the product. And you're going to be able to say, okay, this is CICS. And it's going to fill in everything we know about CICS. It's going to give you the start commands, the stop commands, the up message, what we expect for down. If we can give you a guess on a prereq, we'll fill in a guess on a prereq. It'll give you descriptions. And then all you're going to have to do is fill in all your site-specific stuff. What's the job name that you call this? Are there any additional prereqs that you want to add into here? So that will allow you to get things defined a lot quicker. One of the nice features that the team really went above and beyond on doing is giving you the ability to create user-defined ones. So if you know that your CICS regions are done completely differently than the way that we have it out of the box, you can bring up the CICS. You can say, okay, I want to make this a type. Hit that command. And it will take that information and make it a type for you. So it will show up on this list just like all of the ones that we ship out. If you keep it named CICS, it will override ours. If you give it a different name, you'll see both on the list whenever you do CICS. So the idea here is to just get all the stuff that you normally have to fill in and get it into a template so that whenever you need to do it, all you got to do is select it, fills it all in, and then all you have to do is change the unique stuff. It's really hoping it's going to be a time saver in getting this stuff done. All right. So one of the other things that we did is the action table. If you're new to the action table or haven't done a lot of work in it, it can be cumbersome to update. There's a lot of syntax that you got to know. So what we did in here is if you want to add an action field, we created 2 ISPF panels that allow you to select the type of action that you want to take on this. And I pulled the start commands here, so there's 7 different actions that you can take. And if you hit a 1 on there, it'll give you a prompt on what command you want to issue. You type in the command that you want, and behind the scenes, the panel is going to translate that into the correct format for you, and you're not going to have to worry about how do I format this. All you got to know is this is the command that I want to issue, and we'll take care of the rest for you. One of the additional things we added in here is this last one called SSM commands. This allows you to issue multiple commands with time intervals in between. This works on both startup and shutdown. So you can say, issue this command, wait 10 seconds, issue this command, wait 10 seconds, issue this command. This is modeled off of a sample program that we had for stopping STCs, but this is actually integrated into the SSM code at this point. This is not a sample Rex program that was issued out. The format that we're going to put into the action table will not be using that Rex program. This will be using an internalized piece of code that we now have. As a result, we are making sure that you have valid syntax in here because we are helping you build them. If you don't want to go through these panels and you're comfortable typing in whatever the syntax is in the action table, you can just type it in and not go through these panels. If you're familiar with it or you're copying something and you know, oh, the start command was this, I just got to change the job name, you can just change the job name and the syntax that's going to show up on your summary screen. We're not trying to force you through this process. We're trying to give you as much help as possible with getting everything set up. All right. Okay, so we also added in a couple other small functionality that we think are really going to help you out a lot. The upper left here, for the SSM hook process, this was a routine that we had shipped out in the past. They required some updating of rules, some tables, you had to insert some stuff in the action table, all that stuff. Well, we've taken all that processing and we've put that into SSM, so now from these panels, all you have to do is set SSM hook to yes, and that's all you have to do. We take care of everything else behind the scenes for you in terms of getting that set up. That will definitely make it a lot easier to manage hook tasks going forward. Okay, the next one is this activation time, inactivation time, and restarts. This is another sample that we had shipped out called SSM retry. We've taken that, we've gotten rid of the need to use that, and now there's just a couple params here. So the activation time, if you set it to the number of seconds before you expect the task to be up. If it's not up in that amount of time, we'll throw out a message into the OPSLOG, and you can take your automated actions that you feel fit that you need to take for a task not being up. The same with the inactivation time. One of the big changes here is those are separate, so you could add 60 seconds for one, you could have an hour for the other one if you want. It's two different parameters. Same with the auto restarts. With the SSM retry, it was a number of restarts in a time frame. It used the same time frame as the activation time. Well, now it's divorced from that. So it's just the number of restarts before a task goes up. So if you've got a task that's continuously adventing on the way up, you set this to 2, it'll only do it twice, and then it'll put out a message telling you it advented. And that restart gets reset every time the task goes up, so that kind of clears out a lot of the confusion that was with that, and once again, it's just completely built into this SSM version. Okay, let's see. The next one down here in the middle, we've, for several releases, you've had the ability to take action whenever the task goes up, or down. We're exposing that on the panel, so getting rid of the setup requirements that were required to do that. This works the same way as any start command or stop command. You can put an MVS command in there and have it issue out a command when the task goes up or down. Just gives you additional functionality, kind of exposes something that was already there for you. Okay, the bottom left here is control group. So this is a new functionality that we have for this version of SSM. So this will allow you to define tasks to one or multiple control groups. And what that does is you can go in and you can start, stop, display, recycle control groups instead of tasks. So if you want to set up a control group for all your test CICS regions, put them all in the same control group. Through one command, you can shut down all of those regions or display them or start them up or recycle them. By allowing a task to be in multiple control groups, you could say, if we continue on our CICS theme, you can have all your CICS regions defined to a group, and then you can have broad test and QA as different groups, so that if you ever need to shut down all your CICS, you can do that, or you can do your QA, or you can do your test. Just allows your flexibility. Okay. And the last kind of major change that we have here for SSM is, as part of this system, we wanted to make it easier for you to manage your rules. So we added in this new syntax here on these panels that you tell us what type you want, you tell us the message ID, and if there's any text that you need to verify that's in the message itself. If not, then you leave that blank. And we will create a dynamic rule for you so you don't have to manage SSM initialization or termination messages anymore. So once this is added into the table and activated into SSM, you will see a dynamic rule getting set up at op startup time or whenever the rule gets added in SSM if it's new. And that dynamic rule will be what's marking the task up and or down depending on which message we're talking about. You no longer have to manage those through a rule set and make sure that you have them auto-enabled and enabled correctly. Ops is going to take care of that for you and make sure that you have the rules that you need. And like I said, as part of the verification process, we will go through and make sure those rules exist. I didn't put a cutout on here of it, but if you are still using and still want to continue using your existing rules or rules in an AOF rule data set, there is a line underneath this where you can type in your rule set.rulename, and Ops will use that for the verification process and make sure that it is there and won't enable dynamic rules for you. It will just manage that rule for you. It's not going to go out and enable or auto-enable it for you. That's still something you have to do, but it will make sure it exists before it allows the rule, before it allows the resource to be added in SSM. One of the side benefits then is all of this information is stored in one table, so it does give you that one screen of information and allows you to see what's going on, including rules. Okay. So the other thing that we did with SSM that's kind of divorced from the administration piece was we had a piece of code that we shipped called SSMGA version 2. This was used for moving resources around. So you could define backup systems, and you could either have them automatically fail over, or you could fail them over whenever you deemed necessary. We hear a lot of people use this to kind of manage their capping situations. So things are going away, so they move it to another system, or during maintenance, system A is getting shut down, move everything to system B. That was a separate setup process that you needed to do, and there was a lot of rules that you needed to do, columns you needed to add to the tables, and all that stuff. So we took as much of that as we could, and we moved it into just base part of this new SSM version. So there's still a PARM that you need to set to turn it on because not everybody needs it. But a lot of the legwork that you need to set it up is no longer there or required. There's a couple columns you need to add to the table and a PARM you need to set, but the rest of it is all taken care of for you, and it allows you to move tasks around. This does use the SYSPLEX Global Variables, so you do need that common services piece installed that you do for the SYSPLEX Global Variables. But it is now part of that base SSM install. There's a separate install that needs done other than the, like I said, the farms and the couple columns we've added. But it really simplified things, and it now kind of gives it as part of the base package instead of looking like it's separate. Okay. All right, so that was all the SSM enhancements that we did. Like I said, that was the bulk of what the team did. We really did a lot of work around that and getting things, trying to make things a lot simpler for you, getting everything consolidated together. All right, so a couple other additional enhancements that we had in this release. We added in an address ESP functionality. So this will allow you to issue commands to ESP's Rex interface. So if you're running ESP as your batch job scheduler, this will allow you to do things like start jobs, start schedules, check the status of schedules. Probably your batch job scheduler is holding your company's calendar of record for holidays and stuff like that. So you'd be able to issue commands against the calendar and find out, hey, is this a working day? Is this a it all depends on what's stored in your ESP calendar, but you can get to it and get that information. Additionally, in ESP, they added in a new command called send to ops, which will allow you to send API events over to ops. So we really have that two-way communication now. So if they want to give you information, they can send it over. And then if you need to go and find information from them, you can use this address ESP functionality. All right. And the last one here is this OPSTHRSHO function that we added in, I think in 12.2. I think we added this one in. So we added a couple of additional parameters here for the OPSTHRSHO. So we added in an A, which is an ASID checkings. Well, the original OPSTHRSHO worked on a message level. So you were able to use this OPSTHRSHO functionality to say, okay, has this message come out within X amount of time? Okay, it has, so I don't want to take this action after it, or I do because it's come out so much. But if you had multiple rules, on the same message, it kind of worked in conjunction, or if you had multiple jobs issuing out the same message, it didn't know the difference. It was the same message, so it came out this amount of time. So what the ASID allows you to do is say, okay, has this message come out so many times for this job? So it takes it down to the ASID level. So it allows you a little finer grain detail on your thresholding to allow you to kind of manage how many times an automation takes across a particular message. And then the last two here are for message text checking. So if you want to know how many times this message came out that contains the word addend within a certain time frame, that would cover the second one there. So it's kind of the same concept as the job name. It's got to have addend in it. It's got to be that message, and it's got to be so many times in that minute. And then the second one allows you to give a starting position. So in case that string occurs more than once, but you only want it in the end one, you can say starting character 12. And then the last iteration allows you to deal with MLWTO. So I want it on the second line of the MLWTO as opposed to the third line. So just trying to give you a little more flexibility, kind of fleshing out this thresholding functionality so that gives you a little more control over when automation fires off for these message rules. Okay. All right. So those were the enhancements in 12.3 that team, I think, did a very good job of getting through all this stuff, getting things updated. It did a fantastic job on the new features. Okay, but before we open up for questions, I did want to give you a couple of additional education opportunities that we have coming up and are out there. There is this Mainframe Virtual Summit coming up on July 20th. This is an all CA-wide the summit. You log on to the website, and there will be representatives from all the different various areas giving you information, answering questions, directing you to the right places. It's really like a conference online. There are speakers that will be at different times. It's This is the second one we've done. It's actually, the first one was very well. For ops specific, what we started doing is we are going to be creating YouTube videos across all these features and functionality that we did in 12.3, and we're going to continue to do that going forward. We are currently in the process of getting them approved internally to get posted. But these are the ones that you will see. They are completed. They just have not been posted yet. So you will be seeing ones about pretty much every feature that I've talked about here. These are going to be relatively short and concise, but a lot more in-depth on how to actually use it, set it up, that kind of information. So they're just a high level. Also, for those of you who are attending SHARE or may be attending SHARE, we have 2 sessions around, one is specifically around ops in the 12.3 release. It will go into detail about what we've done with the release. And then the other one is in kind of a all-encompassing using automation and how that can help your data center. So we do have those 2 sessions coming up in SHARE, if you will be there. And then for CA World, we added in 3 pre-conference education sessions, which is new for ops this year. We haven't done any pre-con ed in quite a few years for ops. There may be more added. These are definitely going to be there. So we've got the basic overview for ops. So this is going to go through and give you everything you need to know as a new or relatively inexperienced person about ops and what it is. And then we are going to go into all the various integration pieces in another class. So this is how ops can integrate with all kinds of other products and what you can do with those. And then the last one is going to be all around using System State Manager, setting things up and configuring your system and getting resources defined. So there's there will probably be more added for ops for CA World coming up, but those are the 3 that are definitely on the slate now. Okay. And the last thing that you can do if you are interested is we have we're obviously just finishing up the 12.3 release. We will be starting up a new release very soon. As part of that, we look for what we call validate customers. And these are ones that we have monthly meetings with to talk about everything that we developed in the last month, make sure that we are on track with what you guys see as the most important pieces going forward. And also then we will tell you what we plan on working on in the next month cycle. These customers will get early previews of the code that we're going to release. When we release it out as an Agile PTF, is kind of giving the inside track on knowing that it's there and all that stuff. These we love to have as many customers as we can in these meetings because it really gives us the insight on what we should be working on. For this last release for 12.3, when we went back and looked through it, we ended up doing 37 different stories based upon these customer feedback during these meetings. The release took about 16 months, I think, is what we ended up doing. So we would present to customers, they would give us their feedback, and we would kind of make some changes, tweaks, and all that stuff. And that it ended up being a rather significant amount, so about 37 different suggestions that we took from these customers and got implemented just in this release outside of the community site, so specific to the work that we're working on right then. So yeah, definitely something that we welcome as many customers as are interested in giving us that feedback. Okay. All right, and here is my contact information, and I think, Len, we can open it up for the questions now.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. We actually do have some questions that came in along the way. A couple of them might be a little out of context since I think some of them came in earlier, but I'll still read them for you.
Okay.
The first one is, wouldn't rule name and rule name 5 be the same? This showed rule name 1 the same as rule name. I think that one was
okay. Yes, I think that was a mistake on my part. I flipped it backwards. The old rule name was the first rule that fired on it, not the last. I flipped that backwards whenever I said that. So that's why rule name and rule name 1 were the same instead of rule name 5. That was a good catch. Thank you. I did flip that in my head.
The next one is we will have to reduce OPSLOG size to be under 2.9 if we are using the max ?
Yes. What happened? What that is for the OPSLOG we are using an MVS data space, and we are using the full size of that in order to get that information in it. So when we added additional information about each message, we increased the size, basically going. We increased the record size. Thank you. So because the records are all bigger, we can store less. So unfortunately, yes, you will have to reduce down to 2.9 million. Definitely look at the migration guide before you go to 12.3. There is some steps that you have to do for the OPSLOG before you bring up 12.3, especially if you want to retain your old OPSLOG. Basically, if you try and come up with the old 12.2 OPSLOG in 12.3, it erases it, correct?
I think we have a fix for that.
We have a fix for that? Okay. Okay, there's compatibility.
In storage.
Okay, but it will flip you out of that log and into an in storage one, so there is a requirement to reallocate your OPSLOG for you.
All right, thank you. And that's actually a good segue. Next question is, we are currently on 12.1. Is there a migration process to get to these new features? We have a lot of stuff in our current Ops MVS that may take some time to convert to new functions.
Yes. Anticipating that this was not going to be going install and you're done, when you first install, if you've been working with the product for a while, you may remember a part called SSM version that we used to go from version 1 to version 2. That parm is back. Now it goes from 2 to 3. When you install 12.3 by default, it is version 2, and that's going to give you the versioning that was available in 12.1 or 12.2 right now. When you feel comfortable and are ready to go to the new version, you would change that parm to a 3, and then there is a migration process that you will be required to go through to get your code up to date, add some columns to a table, and then get into the policy management stuff. So yes, there is a migration path. We don't force you down it as soon as you install. That is something that we expected that you would want to get up to date on 12.3, and then take your time on probably a sandbox system, flushing out, making sure you understand everything and it works correctly in your environment before we forced you to do that migration.
Okay. The next question is, when is 12.3 GA?
It will either be out later today or tomorrow morning. It all depends on when our packaging gets completed. It's out of the development team's hands. They are done with everything that they need to do. They are just waiting for CA to post it, basically, at this point. So it's either going to be later today or tomorrow.
All right. Let's see. We have two more. This one, if it's not out of scope for this session, will GA version of Ops MVS 12.3 be SSMV3 out of the box? In other words, would new SSM tables be SSMV2 and need to be upgraded to SSMV3?
Yeah, I covered that with the other one, but no, it will not be V3 out of the box. You will be able to still use V2 when you come up, and then whenever you are comfortable with the changes that are made and how that affects the setup that you have, then you could switch over to V3 and bring it up. Yeah, we definitely intended that to not be a install thing that goes through the as the SSM requires some changes if you are going from an existing one to the new one, and we did not want to force that on an install.
And then the last question that I see is, would using the policy manager, hold on. maybe the person means when. When using the policy manager, does it create a dynamic rule for each EOM task?
No. So if you are using API events for up, it will create one API event. If you're using the EOM for the way down, it will create one EOM rule. And conversely, if you've got 300 CICS regions, it's only going to create one rule that covers all the CICSs because they all use the same message. So it is smart enough to know that it has already created one and it's not going to create multiples.
All right, and then one last one just came in. Please clarify OPSLOG requirement. Is new OPSLOG allocation required, or can we use same OPSLOG data sets with provided PTFs?
Yes, a new allocation is required. The PTF was, if you forgot to do that allocation and you brought up 12.3, it used, when we first came out incremental, it would wipe out your old OPSLOG and you couldn't get the message back. So the PTF, which is going to be part of the packs because it was an incremental PTF, so there is no actual PTF that you would need to do if you do the 12.3 GA install. It will, instead of deleting the OPSLOG and all that, it will just switch you over to the in-memory OPSLOG. So, but you do need to allocate a new OPSLOG for this release, and it has to do with because of the resizing that we did to give you that additional information.
All right, that is the last question, so I think we can wrap it up. Michael, thank you so much, and to the whole team. We really appreciate all the hard work you put into this, and you taking the time to do this webcast. And to our attendees, thank you for offering up your time as well. I will get this posted in the community later today, and I'm hoping that we can get some more of these planned on the calendar, so we'll do that soon as well. Have an awesome day, everybody.
Okay. Real quick, if you do have any other questions, if you do have any other questions or concerns or anything about ops that you would like to reach out for, my contact information is on here. It's just michael.thiel@ca.com. Look forward to hearing for any questions or concerns.
Right. Thanks, Michael. Have a good day, everybody.